Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at Bareham Engines. So, before we get on to today's subject, firstly, say thank you very much to a subscriber the other day, because obviously we're not in at the moment, we were meant to be on Christmas holiday, meant to be back at home, but I've been allowed out for an hour or two. So Monday, I was in recording the video with the nightmare pigeons, and we had a knock on the door, and I thought, who on earth's that? It's Christmas break, for God's sake. And there was two gents standing at the door. I opened the door and it was a couple of subscribers, a gentleman and his son. The gentleman was from London, the son was actually come down from Scotland, and they're visiting family in Braunton, and they were also doing some sea fishing. And they asked subscribers of the channel, been watching it from the start, well the dad has, and they dropped in to just say hello and give us some cakes and biscuits. So just want to say a massive thank you to them. And if you haven't already, guys, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us. Secondly, today, noticed in a few of the comments in all the videos about me saying guys a lot. So today, that is the last time you're going to hear me say guys, and I'm going to refer to you as everyone. Going to do my best. It's become a bit of a habit, an annoying one, I know. So I'm sorry about that. We'll see what I can do. Right, a few videos back, I did a review on the Pakistani engines channel, or one of them, and you people suggested that I went and watched another channel called Jim's Automotive Machine Shop. So that's exactly what I've been doing. Been watching their videos, and very interesting. Great couple of guys. It looks like father and son setup, and yeah, it's really interesting to see how other people do what we do, and you know, learn from the setups they've got and the machines and the jigs and what have you, and the way they do things. So yeah, doesn't matter how long you've been in this game, people. You're always learning. Never too proud to sort of admit when people are doing things better than what we potentially could be doing them. So yeah, really interesting to see these gents and watch their videos and the way they do things. So today I'm going to be just doing a quick review on one of their videos from a couple of weeks ago on a 396 big block Chevy engine. Again, a few people in the comments on the last review video said, why don't you just play the video with me up there reviewing it? Firstly, I don't know how to do that. So if any of you people could put down in the comments how I'm meant to do that, whether I've got to sort of get in touch with the people that put the videos on, I don't know. So at this point, I'm going to do the same as what I did before. I've took a few screenshots so you can just see which bits I'm talking about, what subjects. So I'm sorry about that, but I'll play the video here. I'm going to watch it as we go, and I'll just put a few stills up so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, what they're doing at the moment, they've got a 396 big block Chevy, aluminium block, obviously sat with water in the bores for some time, so they're going to be fitting liners. Now, first of all, it's a straight liner they're going to be putting in by the looks of it, not a top hat one. So they're going to be doing the step down the bottom and the usual 2 to 3 thou interference from going by what the video says. It's the son doing the job here. Now, first of all, he's got this boring bar here, which looks like a sort of modern CNC sort of pattern type. This one here is where the block sits on from the bottom face, rather than like ours, where ours clamps onto the top face. So the advantages with this, you've got the top face all open. You can clock the top, you can work at waist height and sort of see what you're doing. Whereas ours, you've got to load it down underneath, and once it's clamped on, it's very hard to sort of get to the bores and do anything like that. As I say, yeah, that's the only disadvantage with this machine here, because you're having to clamp off the top, everything's a bit too lower down, and when the block is in here, it's very difficult to sort of see in our bores. And obviously, you're working the other way round, really. You're assuming that the block face is parallel to the bores to start with. Yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about this. First thing here, you can see this jig that he's set up on. Now this jig, I'll be honest with you, if any of you out there, if you know where we can get a jig like that to set these V8s up on, I would very much appreciate you putting down in the comments where we can get one of them, because that looks handy. The only thing I don't like about that jig is where he's clamped it in the camshaft housing there. He's got a square block clamp in a round hole. So all that is going to do, by the looks of it to me, is dig in the sides of the housing. I don't like that idea. I'd probably prefer to have some sort of shaped clamp that fits the housing a bit better, if you know what I mean. It's the only thing I don't like. But the great thing about that is it's got the bar either end that's the same size, or if not very close to the main housing. The main housing sits on there. So what you're doing is you're boring it parallel to the mains housing, which is a great idea. On this one, it's obviously a 90-degree V this, so he's got a 45-degree jig there to just set up off the sump face of the block. So what he does is he tilts it, puts that jig in there so it's right up against the block. He knows that's at 45 degrees, and then the top bores are going to be sort of true then. And then he clamps, obviously with the clamps either side, he just clamps that jig in that position. Now you can see there the setup of that block on that machine, and I'm not sure what machine that is, but I do like it. And I'll tell you one thing I do like is that gauge up the top works off the centering tool, as opposed to ours having 3 cat's paws that you just wind out, and it sort of centres in the existing bores. That one there, you can actually clock around inside the bore, and it shows up on that gauge up the top there, which is a really good idea. So all you do is you wind the beds, your X and Y, in and out, and sort of get it where you want, really. So that's a great idea. Now the only thing I will say about this setup, see where he's got the block on those jigs, and he's obviously clamped, the jigs are clamped down to the bed. The only thing I don't like about this setup is you're relying, because the block isn't clamped up the top, it doesn't look very sturdy to me. So what it's like on the big heavy cuts, I do not know, but that looks a little bit unsturdy, but a lot easier to set up. So it's just my opinion on that, but I still would like one of those. So next one here, you can see, so you see at the top of the block, you've got relieves here, which we don't get very often, I'll be honest with you. We've got these relieves here for the valves, so that'll be probably the inlet valves where they overhang the bore, and he's got to put those relieves back in once the liners are in. So what he's doing, he's got it looks like he's got a jig here. So, you know, on our Centronic valve seat cutter, he's got sort of one of those adapted onto a taper up the top that goes into a taper holder on the machine. And looks like what he's going to be doing is offsetting that from the bore. So he's going to be clocking the bore, then offsetting over, reading the measurements. And these are your standard sort of Myra. See, that's a Myra Centronic cutter, that is, that he's obviously just adapted to do the clearances for the valve cutouts. That is your readout. So what he's done there is he's just done he's took the readings. He's going to take those readings in the X and the Y, and that's how much he's had to come off from clocking the bore. He's had to come over to do those cutouts. So every time he clocks a bore, he knows to go over those measurements, and go in with that Myra cutter and just take the cutout. Yeah, that's a good idea. So what we have to do when we do that, at the moment, the only time we really have to do that is when we offset the bores for like the Mini A series, when you're doing like a 1380, and you've got to offset the bores. And you've got to offset the bores outwards, because if you bore them out too much in the existing positions, they're going to go into one another. So on the Minis, we have to sort of move the 2 inners, so 2 and 3 we have to move apart, and 1 and 4 we have to move out. So what I do is I clock the bores on our milling machine, which has got the same DRO readout, and then I bore down with our boring head, bore down so much, roughly, probably about 10 mil, and then I put them on our boring bar, and I can clock off the bits that I've bored out roughly, and that is where I go from to do the bores for the big bore A series. So that's the way I do it at the moment. It's the same sort of thing, but he's just doing it all off one machine, which is a lot more handy. So this is our boring head. You can see here, you can adjust that from the side there. Also here you've got very fine adjustments, so each revolution of that is 0.4 of a mil. The tool holders go in the bottom. We've got various tool holders in this block here. We clock them with that, and we also put the cutter down to rough it out and get our equal spaces. And then what we do is we put the block back over on our boring bar there, and we clock off the new dimensions that I've bored with that boring head. So yeah, really handy bit of kit that is. Now this is one of the liners. What he's doing is just measuring the liner, and when he goes through it, if you watch it, he says that he tries to give it about 2 to 3 thou interference on these with the step at the bottom. But why I've took this picture here is that jig that he's sitting that liner on there is a really good handy jig, and I would love to get my hands on one of those, because I've seen him use that jig before to hold a piston upside down when he's balancing the pistons. So he clamps the jig. You've got 2 rollers either side here, and then you've got the clamping jig on this side here. So for clamping anything lightly that's cylindrical, absolutely perfect. He's held pistons before in it where he removes material with a Dremel and then weighs each one individually. So that's a really good handy bit of kit. Saves holding it in a vise with some aluminium jaws because it's not ideal. And so that's the step down the bottom that he's left. You can see there's about 3 or 4 on the left hand side. There's about 3 or 4 mil of material still left in the base there, but it obviously goes up in the base of the block towards the mains houses, and it's gone very thin to the point where it's broke through, but that doesn't matter because on the edges you've got some real nice thick material. So there he is in the process of boring. As you can see, everything's at sort of waist or chest height, so it's very visible. You can see exactly what you're doing. Yeah, really like that machine. Good bit of kit. You can see that he's got the steps down the bottom. Probably 90% of that step down the bottom is existing. So that's going to be more than adequate to put a straight liner in. Now that jig setup there, he said, is one that his dad made years ago that he used to set it up on, obviously before they got that machine or that jig. So that is the same sort of setup that we use on our boring bar. Obviously when it's tilted over 45 degrees, we can clamp it on the top of the block face and it's sitting on the main. So that's a similar sort of setup to what we use now. Now this does surprise me. We normally press these in. You've seen how I press it. So I get a bar of metal one way, bar the other, and I press them in, and it sort of self-centers the liner. But he's putting them in with a big sledgehammer. I don't quite know how he's doing that with a 3 thou interference. But and another thing I found interesting, he doesn't seem to bother cooling the liner or heating the block. He just does it cold. If it works, it works. But I always find that you get a more solid feeling with the press when it bottoms out. Now that's it set up. He's just got the liners in, obviously, and he's just doing the cutout through the liner. And that is it really, guys. That's all these video shows. Obviously another video will show you him facing the top. I'm not sure whether that big boring head there, whether he does sort of face the block when it's still on the jig, then you know that those bores are going to be dead in line with the cylinder head with the block face. But yeah, really interesting to see how other people do it. As I say, I would love one of those machines, and I'd also love that V8 jig, because that would make it so much easier, even to hone, set up on the home for us. It'd be so much easier to have that. So be really appreciative if anyone knows where I can get one of those. Great couple of blokes, really enjoy watching their videos. Going to watch some more, and I shall hopefully do some more reviews in the future with them boys. But yeah, thanks ever so much for watching. Have a great New Year's Eve, and we will see you in the new year on the 3rd. You take care.